I saw last week in What's Happening that I'm preaching on creation, so I thought, right, which version do I go with? Shall I go for the maiden 7 days? Shall I go with Darwinism? Shall I go with Big Bang? The choices. But actually, I'm guessing the reason for the word creation is to mark that we are in the season of creation. Normally we celebrate that through September, coincident with the beginning of spring here in the south. But we've slid everything a bit this year. Green Faith, an international interfaith organisation, has invited religious communities across the globe to join in a season of action to raise awareness about the climate crisis. And it runs from the 2nd of October to the 6th of November, just before the G20 summit and the UN COP27 conference. So for 3 Sundays, excluding St Matthew's Day, which we celebrate next week, we're turning our attention to creation. Perhaps not surprisingly, we're going to pay attention to the state of our creation we call home. Before somebody I knew wants to duck and cower at what you might perceive as guilt-inducing salvo, I want to invite you on a bit of a journey. Just bring yourself along. Recently, I had the privilege of participating in a series of workshops in my role as Chair of Friendship House Board. The workshops are part of a process that Friendship House is going through to become a Tiriti-based organisation. They were co-presented by Emma Rawson and Adrian Tapatu. In the course of this, of course, there were a number of slides, PowerPoint, and Adrian, in the process of giving us a quick overview of the history of Aotearoa New Zealand and Te Tiriti o Waitangi, he had a slide, and on the image of it was a koru. In fairness, he said he asked his son to make it a koru. He thought it looked a bit more like a mosquito coil, but the intention was to be a koru. And in the middle of this koru was the capital letter G. In speaking to this slide, Adrian spoke of the impact on Māori of the arrival of the European. He commented, because the slide was populated with different things that had come, he commented that there were some good things that came of this, and some that were not so good. But he said it wasn't all bad. However, he said on balance, it didn't end up so well for Māori. Now this has been recognised, he said, we're working to find solutions to the problems, to fix what is broken, to make it good. Then, to help unpack this, Adrian used this analogy. He said, imagine I'm driving home from this workshop, and on my way home I'm involved in a car accident. Quite a bad car accident, because he loses his legs from the knees down. He said, in an immediate response to the accident, all the services come to play. There's the traffic department, there's the police, there's the fire service, rescue helicopters, medical teams, hospitals, surgeons, and so forth. All are attending to his physical needs. Over time, he said, I might move to some rehabilitation care to learn how to manage and to live with missing limbs. Then he returned us to the slide and he said, what do you think that letter G stands for? We were about as silent as you are. He said it stands for grief. He said, you're alive and you're very grateful to be here and now, but life is not as it was. It never can be again. And there is enormous grief at the loss. He said it's been like that for Māori. It is like that. Now we're recognising the problems. We are busy trying to fix them and make them good as best we can. But, he suggested, the deep, abiding and ongoing impact of the grief wrought by the enormous loss lived through remains unexamined. It moved through me in such a way that I would call it an incredibly powerful insight that I'm still trying to figure out and may never figure out, but I'm living to live with it. A week or so later, in discussion with Alan Broome and Rod Oram and Simon Wilson about the climate action event we're planning, it came into my head again. It struck me that maybe it has application for us in the face of our climate crisis. If we consider the wider sweep of history that has led us to this place, it's not all bad, right? Think of the advances in science and in medicine and innovation and technology that provides us greater connectivity and unprecedented access to information. I might add, I'm not sure it makes us any the wiser, but we have more information. We have medicines to heal. We have technology to help us understand all manner of human and planetary intricacy and the fine balance of this planet. But our single-minded pursuit of these things has led to a plundered earth. It is not all bad, but on balance it hasn't ended up so well for our natural world. In response, we want to jump to solutions. Use our innovative brilliance and technological advances to fix things with the best of intentions. Of course, turning our mind and our energy and our technological and innovative skills this way is noble. But what if our intention, however noble, remains unexamined? What if our noble intention is seeded from the same fruit that got us to this place? Let's consider. How many of you remember sitting at those bedtime with your parents reading those aspirational stories? The ones that kind of become in us before we ourselves know how to read. They might sound a bit like this: myths and legends of heroes, or heroines, less often heroines, who set out courageously and to push the boundaries of the known world, who valiantly overcome any obstacle along the way and conquer and tame. We hear stories like this in our scriptures. They tell of a chosen people who righteously take possession of land, who displace and dispatch and replace people not like them. And the God that's on their side enables them to prevail. And perhaps especially for those of us who've had privilege of being a particular colour, who've had the privilege of education and income and, dare I say it in New Zealand, social class, we learned early on to expect to have what we wanted. We didn't think too much about our impact. If we tried hard enough and we knew how to work the system, the sky and our ambition were the limit. Success ultimately became measured by the control we had and our power over. I don't think many of us here want things to be in our world, in our climate, as they are. I don't think any of us are very comfortable at the idea that we're complicit in our climate crisis. And along with that, if you're anything like me, there's an incredible surge of emotions, a swirl around and around and around. Could it be that we grieve for the lifestyle we have to give up because we really like the way our life's been? Could it be that we are grieving at recognising the way that we have been living has led us here? And are we grieving because we never ever meant to get it so wrong? We never ever intended not to be good ancestors. That wasn't part of the deal. And maybe such grief left unexamined is part of what engenders in us a sense of resistance, a petulance in the face of the reality that we have to live differently. Maybe such grief is source of that terrible dragging energy that it's really hard to move through, that persuades us it's so impossible and so difficult, and the balm of inertia is just waiting there for us to bathe in. I wonder this season if we can gift ourselves the chance to sit with that grief. It is, of course, incumbent upon us to do the solution thing. But Mother Nature is now demanding of us the kind of radical shift that requires us to be changed. Our usual Cate of tools and tricks is insufficient. To enact differently isn't just about changing what we think, because you and I both know when we come under pressure, we invariably revert to type, and it's not so pretty as what we think. And there will be a loss for us in this. It may not be as physically and immediately confronting as no legs from the knees down. But if we were to decide to pay attention to our intention, and in doing so decide we're not going to track the same path that led us here, then potentially we are facing a dismantling of our sense of identity. To understand ourselves differently means some rewiring. It means that we're willing to forfeit our certainty and we are willing to invite the vulnerability that goes with that. In faith contexts like this, we talk about these sorts of things. We talk about risking being open and of transformative stuff. We dare to suggest this is actually a thing, and it's an act of choice we can make. We propose that through that risky process of being vulnerable and uncertain, that transformation can happen, and that in it we are held and sustained and always beloved. Because even though rat bag manager wasn't not beloved for being a rat bag. And we say that God loves us. But not only that, we risk saying that we're doing this together, we walk together, we strengthen one another. At the beginning I said I want to invite you on a journey this season of creation. You've got a gap next week, you can have a party. Between this Sunday and the next time we meet in this season, I want and I invite you to reflect on this idea of grieving in the context of our creation. A more immediate one that might come to mind rather than losing your legs is getting through COVID. The grief, what we're not ever going to get back. Grieving for what was, what is, and what is required of us. And maybe along the way you might notice the stories that are in your head, that thread through you, that perhaps inform and motivate your choices to act and behave as you do. You might just notice them. And remember, if we're recognising these are things that cause us grief, be gentle. This is not a conquering hero journey.